Herscher is an award-winning speechwriter, speaker, and storyteller. Her career as a professional storyteller commenced as a corporate sales manager in the hospitality industry, and then evolved over the next 10 years as an executive in the nonprofit industry, and then onto speechwriting in the private sector. She travels all over the country teaching her award-winning concept story form to audiences looking to engage their audience, deepen relationship, and seal the deal. Dawn's upbeat and lively presentation on storytelling includes everything you need to know to catapult your business. Storytelling is your superpower. Welcome, Dawn Herscher.
Hi, everyone. Hope you can hear me. Good morning. Okay, good. I'm unmuted. Good morning, Carlsbad Chamber of Commerce. It's so good to see you guys and to be here with you. Welcome to Storytelling is Your Superpower, where you are going to learn how to use your personal stories to engage your audience, deepen relationships, and seal those deals. First, a couple housekeeping issues. You will be muted throughout the entire webinar, but we will have a Q&A at the end, so hang on to your questions until then, all right? Ready to have some fun? All right, so I have to ask this. Who would have even thought that 7 months ago we would be in this situation? I mean, 7 months ago, my biggest worry was getting my 4-year-old twin boys to stop asking me in a public and crowded place if I pee standing up. Seriously. Today, it's a little different. Today, my husband and I are working from home with our 3 young children. Anyone else doing that? It's fun, isn't it? I mean, I've kind of discovered that seeing my children for 15 hours in a row really has no downside. It really doesn't. Well, except for the fact that it's kind of lit up my OCD. My husband said to me last night, "Can you not Windex the table while we're still eating at it?" Okay, what is his problem? But it's all good and we're managing. But I want to first address the monster in the room, the COVID monster, because it's on our minds, right? And I think that everyone is experiencing a profound loss of normalcy and grief for what our lives were supposed to be like this year, right? Albert Camus once said that in the depth of winter, I finally learned that there was in me an invincible summer. And my invincible summer is teaching you how to use your stories to make money, okay? One of the things that people say to me all the time is that we love the concept of storytelling and we get it. You have to tell stories now to engage your audience. Compelling content is not enough anymore. Marketing is no longer about the products you sell, but the stories you tell. We get it. And we agree. But we're trying to keep the ship from sinking right now. Like, I'll get to all that creative stuff when things are better, when they're stable. But right now I'm hurting professionally, financially, emotionally, and I need someone to throw me a lifeline. I need some hard and fast tools to save my business. Well, believe it or not, your stories are the lifeline. And I don't mean that in like a witchy Monday motivational mindset matters kind of way. I ain't got nothing against motivational Monday. All that is important. But persuasive storytelling is a very specific formula, starting with a chemical reaction in the brain and ending with your audience wanting more from you. This is a hard and fast tool. This is not a creative sidekick. And I'm going to prove it to you in a few minutes, all right? We kind of have these preconceived notions about sales and marketing and how to break through barriers, whether it's projections or algorithms or throwing a bunch of content at people to see what sticks, or relying on antiquated sales techniques to close deals. How many times have you heard someone say, by the 5th time you reach out to a prospect, they should be buying from you, right? Are you kidding me? 5 times? I mean, it's like sales 101, right? I was groomed in that mindset, okay? I grew up in LA in the 90s. So I was indoctrinated into that whole way of thinking. I'm actually writing a book about this right now called $1 Million Stories, where I talk about how I cut myself loose from that mindset and use stories to win business. So I get that it's hardwired in us, okay? But I'm here to tell you that storytelling disrupts all of that. First conversation with story can close a deal. And what's so great about this particular time in our lives is that storytelling kind of hints at the fundamental human unease, right? It hints at human imperfection. Where there's perfection, there's no story to tell. So what better time to address our human unease than right now? Okay, let's switch gears real quickly. Let's pivot, my new favorite word. I have a quick question for you, okay? Who's obsessed with this guy right here? Who's obsessed with their smartphone? Come on, you know you are, be honest. I'm the first to admit it, okay? Like, I'm addicted to the darn thing. Like, I am. This is what it looks like most of the time someone is trying to have a conversation with me. Uh-huh. Yeah, uh-huh. Yeah, sure. Well, honey, I'm sorry you got fired today, but it's been about 30 seconds since the last coronavirus update. So let me just refresh it and post it to Facebook with my opinion, of course. That's very important. And let me just respond to everyone's comments, you know, equally important, and I'll be right with you. I mean, right? I mean, my arm could be falling off and I would still find a way to engage with this thing. I'd be like this. So why do I bring this up? I bring this up because there has never been so much competition for your audience's attention. So how do you get your message through? Between smart technology and social media, how do you compete with all the content that's out there? All the chaos, all the riffraff. It is not enough just to write compelling copy anymore. If you want to make a difference in today's climate, you have to be seen and you have to be heard. And recent studies have also shown that people don't want facts and figures and data anymore. That's out. If they're going to give you their time today, their 5 minutes, their 10 minutes, their 45 minutes, they want to get something out of it. Know what I mean? They want to have a human experience, a connection. They want to walk away and say, now that was value added to my life. That was worth every single moment of my time. Persuasive storytelling is using your personal stories to convince your audience of your point of view. Whether you want them to buy your product or your service or join your nonprofit or give you money or just change your mind about something, crafting a story that they care about is a very powerful tool. Oops, sorry, not that tool. This tool, okay? Oh yeah, she did. Storytelling is so powerful that I liken it to a superpower because it has the capacity to change perception, okay? And that's the ultimate goal of storytelling. I want to stay on the superpower concept just for a couple minutes before we dive more into stories. I'm actually going to share with you one of my biggest secrets. I'm going to tell you something I don't usually tell people from the stage, but you're special, so I'm going to tell you. I'm going to tell you what my superpower is as a presenter, okay? So as a speaker, I'm really limited to a few things that I can do to give a really powerful presentation, right? I'm not a magician, so I can't pull out a bunch of tricks from my bag. My tricks are basically three things: good communication skills, engaging delivery style, and compelling topic, right? Maybe a padded bra, depending on the audience. But even if all those things line up and are in stellar shape, sometimes I need a little extra something to really bring it home. You know what I mean? And for me personally, that X factor, that superpower thing, is knowing how I can use the stage that I'm standing on to change your perception. Let me show you what I mean. I kind of think of the stage as a silent partner. If I stand downstage and center and get up close in your face and talk really fast like this, that's quite a cutoff, right? That's like really aggressive. It's like, wow, what is her problem? Whereas if I move all the way to the back of the stage, kind of put my hands in my pockets, kind of look around, I might come across as aloof and guarded. Yeah, see that speaker back there, the one with her hands in her pockets? Hire that speaker. But here's the most interesting part. The left and the right stages are how I anchor the main points of the talk. For example, if I stand over here on stage left, which is house right to you, I might want to represent negative or lack of or some type of bad thinking. Whereas over here on stage right, I might want to transition to how I overcame that bad thinking. So this side would represent positive or abundance or a new way of thinking. Over here, I Windex the table like a crazy person. Over here, I'm fully present and allowing my children to eat a chemical-free meal. Over here, vicious cycle, posting to Facebook every 30 seconds. Over here, spiritually fit, listening only to meditation CDs in my spare time. So what this all means is that I have some control over the audience's emotional response to the information that I am presenting, which means that I'm in a position to change their perception. And that is a very powerful position to be in when your goal is to get someone to take action, which it is, okay? So the stage is kind of my secret weapon. It's my superpower. because it gives me that extraordinary power to change perception. Okay, let's do a quick exercise. Remember I said we're gonna have fun? Okay, everyone stand up for a minute. Come on, everybody, stand up. Once you auto assume the superpower position, everyone know what this is? It's feet shoulder length apart, hands on hips, and elbows out. So the superpower stance projects power. It's an example of what psychologists refer to as open posture. It's actually been proven that the open posture affects the hormones in the brain, which in turn affect the behavioral pattern typical of the pose you're standing in. Make sense? So why am I telling you this? Do I want you to stand like this every time you speak to your client? So what brings you to my office today, sir? No, that's weird and creepy and probably should be illegal in the state of California. I'm telling you this because the superpower position has a chemical effect on the brain, and so does storytelling, okay? Storytelling triggers the chemical release of oxytocin, which motivates cooperation with others. Let me say that again. It motivates cooperation with others. It does this by enhancing our sense of empathy, which is really important in business relationships. Okay? Heck yeah, it does. So no, we're not going to stand in the superpower position when engaging our clients, but we're going to make them feel, curious by triggering that same chemical response through storytelling. Okay? You can sit down. Thank you for being a good sport. So for the rest of the conversation, we're going to talk about the kind of stories to tell and how to tell them. And I want to start with my own personal philosophy on this, which I refer to as having good story form. And story form is the closest thing that I have seen to a marketing superpower if your goal is to engage your audience, deepen relationships, and seal those deals. All right, if that is your goal, then follow me. Take that off. Okay, stories make money. It's my new favorite thing to say. So good story form is 3 things, and I'm going to walk you through each of those things in detail. But what I want to say about this here is that this sort of came to life for me when I worked as a corporate speechwriter, long before I started speaking. I created this formula that was initially targeted to help the executives that I was writing the speeches for really be able to connect with their audiences. And it was so successful that I realized that what I had here was a legitimate marketing tool that could translate to the written word and really enhance the dynamic between presenter and audience in a way that is so profound. And I have found that to be true. I would see these brilliant and experienced CEOs standing in front of their communities with this deep desire to connect, but have absolutely no clue how to do that. But once they applied this formula, this story form, I mean, all bets were off. With the kind of authenticity that story form ignites, I saw them turn their audiences into putty by sharing their personal stories, okay? So speaking of authenticity, let's head right into the first part of the formula. So the first part in having good story form is to tell a story that is personal to you and relevant to them. So what do I mean? There's a lot to unpack here. So how do we tell a story that's personal to us? Well, we do that by being vulnerable, right? And why is vulnerability important? It's important because it shows our clients that we're human, okay? If I'm shopping around for a product, that's important, like a payroll company or an efficient CRM, then I want to know that the person I am buying it from cares about my experience as the end user. The other reason this is important is because that is where the persuasive part of the story comes in. Otherwise, it's just a story. But a personal story kicks up all that oxytocin in the audience and makes them curious and makes them want more from you. And what do I mean by relevance? Well, I mean, it's obvious to some degree, but you'd be surprised. Choose a story where they have some skin in the game, where they will be invested in. Here's a perfect example. When COVID first hit, I had just been hired to speak at a yearly conference. It was this past June in Florida. And just like everything else, when all the events started to cancel, they canceled their events. Heartbreaking, right? I mean, I know you guys can relate to that. But my client said to me, please don't worry. We're going to reschedule for March of 2021, and we'll keep you in mind, as we go along. Well, I didn't really want to wait around for him to get back to me. I wanted to ensure my spot on that speaker's lineup for 2021. And what's the best way to do that? Oxytocin. Kill them with story. So like a good stalker, good internet stalker, I went sleuthing, through all of his social media. And I came across a board meeting from a few years ago that was more than just a board meeting, okay? It was quite the little shindig they had going on. It was this whole 70s theme. The executives were dressed up in swag. I mean, the whole thing. Platforms, bell bottoms, and the CEO, who was my client, I think he was wearing a mullet wig. God, I hope it was a wig. And they were doing this karaoke to this like one-hit wonder song from the 70s. I don't know if you remember this song. You know what? I have a better idea. Let me just show you. Oh, man. Oh, God. Sorry about that. Okay. Well, for whatever reason, I can't play it. Oh, man. Okay, so I can't play the song. I'm very sorry. But it was a very funny song from the 70s. Okay, it was like this one-hit wonder. It was like, you make me feel like dancing. I'll just sing, gonna dance the night away. And they were doing this whole snappy thing. And it was stinking hilarious. So guess what I did? I made my own little video. And I referenced the board meeting and the snappy because that's really, trendy right now. Snapping and dancing are really hot these days. So I sent it with a funny note, and he was so tickled by my gesture and by my mindfulness that he sent me the contract to speak that very day. So why am I telling you this story? Because it's obviously incredibly personal to me, and it's relevant to you. So if we were in a different setting right now and I was trying to sell you something, this would be a very good time to bring it up, okay? Because I have your attention with the story, all right? Sorry about that song thing. Let's move on. So the next thing in using good story form is like a little slice of heaven, because if you do this right, it can lead to a gold mine. And that is the difference between story and narrative. So what do I mean by a narrative? Okay, a narrative is talking about a story, usually in the past tense, retelling a story, not necessarily in any particular order, right? Whereas a story is taking people on a journey as if it's happening right now. Have you ever been in the middle of a really good story and you kind of lose time and you don't really know where you are when the story is over? Well, that's a good sign. And that's how we want to tell stories when we want someone's attention, because that is what triggers oxytocin. And if you do this, if you take people on a journey and you make them feel something, I promise you, they will never forget you, okay? So I want to show you a quick case study. It's 2 very short videos. They're about 1.5 minutes each. Hopefully it's going to work. And it really highlights the differences between these 2 things. So I want you to pay attention to the differences, but I also want you to pay attention to how you're feeling when you're watching it, okay? All right, here we go. Oh. Oh, man. I'm thrown off by all the gallery. I don't usually get to see your faces. Oh, man. I don't know what's going on here. There we go. Okay, sorry. Okay, here we go. Hopefully you're going to be able to see this.
Here, talk to me. Talk to me. Close your eyes.
Okay.
Breathe.
All right, ready? Yeah.
What does the Journey Collection mean to you?
It means I'm being who I was born to be. I'm creating and I'm designing and I'm living my dreams. And this is the ripple effect of just finally getting to the place of doing what I so passionately love and want to be.
A lot of people view me as the girl who lost my parents in college, and I was a girl that was supposed to carry on Paisan and Joyce's legacy, but deep down, I want to be me. I want to be Jennifer Page. I want people to look at me and be like, she listened to her own intuition, she listened to her heart, and she followed her dreams. Soulcare is a fashion brand and it designs handbags, but it's so much more than that. I want it to be about encouraging young people to be who they are, to follow their dreams, and to not get swept up in the white noise, but to know that if there's something what they want to do, to go after it and do it with all their heart and all their passion. If you're doing what you're meant to do, you will get there.
So that's not a bad narrative, right? You kind of get a sense of her story. It might make you think or feel a few things. Take a listen to the story version of this. All right, here we go.
I suppose my story starts like anyone else's. My parents wanted what was best for me and not to have to experience the struggles that they did. I pursued a business degree, and then afterwards I planned to pursue law school. Then when I was 21, my life changed. I woke to find myself hanging upside down by my seatbelt. My family's SUV had flipped over several times, hitting the base of a concrete billboard before coming to a stop. Both my parents were taken from me that day. My mom was killed instantly, and my dad died hours later in the hospital. I knew that saying goodbye to two people I loved would be hard, but what I wasn't expecting was how hard the aftermath would be. Everyone was wondering what I would become in light of this tragedy. There was a lot of pressure, scrutiny, a lot of noise. I'll never forget the last words my mother said to me. She was sitting in the passenger seat of the car, and seconds before the accident happened, she turned around and she said to me, "Where do you want to go?" The next moment was chaos, and she never even got to finish that sentence. But her voice, that question, "Where do you want to go?" is forever frozen in my memory. I decided the best way to honor my parents is to find the answer that worked for me, for Jennifer Page, not for anyone else. Soul Carrier is the manifestation of that. Every handbag I design is created to serve as a daily reminder, to ignite people to do what they're meant to do. I don't know where you'll be when someone asks you that question, "Where do you want to go?" Or if you will have to ask it of yourself. But when that day comes, I hope that Soul Carrier can be a reminder to tune out the noise and to choose the path you were meant for.
Need I say more? It's pretty powerful difference, right? I mean, it almost needs no explanation. So when you tell a story as demonstrated in the second video, what you're doing is you're transporting the audience into the main character's world. Now, this is really important what I'm going to say right here. This transporting thing is actually an amazing neurological feat. See, we watch a film that we know is fictional, but the evolutionary old parts of our brain simulate the emotions that the main character is feeling. And then we begin to feel those feelings too. And it is this emotional simulation that forms relationship, the kind of relationship that allows humans to engage in large-scale cooperative behavior, like building bridges, or sending humans to the moon, or collaborating on events, because storytelling triggers relationship. Okay, let's go back to that. Let's go back to our lovely PowerPoint here. We are at the mercy of all the technical stuff, huh? Okay, so the third and the final piece of this formula is to make the audience the hero. So in theory, that's great, right? But how do you actually go about doing something like this? Well, you kind of need to know a little something about your audience in order to make them the hero, right? And it doesn't have to be about their product or their brand necessarily. In fact, it's almost better if it's not. One of the best deals that I ever closed was with this, mucky muck CEO of this big marketing company who I never met and I knew very little about. In the days leading up to our meeting, I poured all over his social media to learn whatever I could about him. And when I got to his LinkedIn account, I saw that he had written an article on storytelling. And I was like, oh my God, here's my in. He's a fan of storytelling. Well, it's a good thing I decided to read the article first, because about 10 seconds in, I was like, uh-oh, step away slowly. Turns out we're not on the same side. He was an anti-storyteller. Can you believe that? Who does that? Who's anti-storytelling? It's like a Seinfeld episode. And I was like, oh my God, I have a real problem here. I have to get out of this meeting. This guy is going to eat me for breakfast. And just as I was about to leave his profile undetected, I noticed there was one more article. And so I thought, what the heck? I've got nothing to lose. I'll just read it. And the title read, How Meditation Changed My Life. And I was like, wow, that was sort of out of context. Meditation and a professional profile. But I was like, ding, 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 jackpot. And I was really vibing this article when I was reading it, because meditation changed my life too in a very powerful way, like going from infertility to having 3 babies. Like, that's powerful. So when I sat down in his office the next day, I led by saying, hey, I read your article on meditation and I was really moved by what you had to say, because the same thing happened to me. And his ears kind of perked up and he said, oh, really? How refreshing. I would love to hear your story. So guess how that ended? That's right. It's been one of my best clients for the last 3 years. And it's not because I inflated his ego or talked up his product or did anything gimmicky at all. In fact, I didn't even talk about his product or mine. Didn't even say a word about it. It's because I shined a light on something special and I aligned myself with one of his success stories. And that makes him a hero. And I turned him into a storytelling fan in the process. Sorry, a little bit of a bragger. Okay, so let's review. Story form is 3 things. Number 1, stories that are personal to you and relevant to your audience. 2, always tell a story, not the narrative. I think I made my point on that one. And 3, always make your audience the hero. And remember, the stories you choose are your personal stories. It's really the only way this works. If you do anything different, they will know and the outcome will not be the same. One question that I get asked here a lot is, who am I telling these stories to exactly? Are these new clients? Are these existing clients? Yes, you are using storytelling to engage both new and existing. I just shared a story with you on how to do it with a new client. But with existing clients, it's a little bit easier. There's relationship there and there's history there and lots of material to work with. I worked in luxury hotels for many, many years, and my job was I worked high up in sales, and my job was to entertain people and maintain those relationships. And I used those experiences to influence sales going my way. Whereas the tactics of the other salespeople were more focused on like upgrades and amenities and perks and bullet points and things like that. And I can tell you, it didn't work. It did not work. It did not, and this was many years ago, before people were talking about storytelling. It did not have the same impact. And my numbers were, always reflected that, okay? So now you have the makings of a really good storytelling formula. So now what? Now what do you do? Now you have this valuable marketing tool and it needs a home, okay? Do you think I was just gonna leave you hanging here? What do we do with this? Let's find out. So the home is the venue or the platform you use to communicate with your clients, right? And for most of us, that number 1 home is social media. I mean, if it's not, it really should be. I think in 2019, I think the number was like 91% of businesses use social media for marketing purposes. And I'll bet you it's even higher this year in 2020 due to COVID. So you really should be. All right, storyteller. So let's start with social media. So here's what I want you to do. You don't have to write this down because I can get this all to you, okay? Once a day, I want you to turn your status updates into a mini blog post using these 3 concepts, all right? 1, Use relatable characters, okay? Creating regular personalities like office personnel or mascots or even pets is a great way to build people into the narrative so that your audience will want to sink their teeth into it, so they'll be engaged. Was the girl who went sleuthing through LinkedIn relatable? Yeah, she is, because we're all kind of doing that stuff right now, right? Number 2, always tell the story, not the narrative. And 3, you must have conflict, okay? Every story needs conflict. Oh my God, he's an anti-storyteller. What am I gonna do? Okay, so once a day, work a narrative into your social media updates. Second way to exercise good story form is to share your brand story, okay? The home for this can be multiple venues, social media, newsletters, video, email marketing, all of that. And remember, people don't buy into brands. They buy into the story behind the brand. Have you ever seen a Subaru commercial? I think the last one I saw was like a dad and a daughter, and the daughter's going off to college, and he's going through the car and finding all of her old little girl things, and there's a dog, and it's very nostalgic, and there's music, and they're really portraying this car as a member of this family. So the folks that go out and buy this car after they see the ad want that story for themselves, okay? And that's how you want your audience to feel. A while back during COVID, I went to a drive-through coffee place. It was not Starbucks, I'll have you know, to get my daily fix. And when I got to the cashier, she told me that my drink was already paid for by the gal in front of me. And I was like, oh, okay, well, why? And she said, oh, she's just trying to be nice. And I'm like, oh, okay, well, I'm nice. You know, I'll pay for the coffee drink for the car behind me. And she's like, okay, $20, please. I'm like, okay, $20 it is. I'm being nice. So the next morning I went back, and I was so kind of tickled by the whole thing that I was telling the cashier what happened the day before. And she says to me, oh my God, you were part of that lineup yesterday. And I was like, what lineup? And she said, well, it started off with someone paying for the coffee drink for the car behind them. And every single car did this for 30 minutes straight. I mean, it was incredible. And of course, I'm like, oh my God, this is an amazing story, you know? And as a storyteller, I'm thinking, I've got to call the company and right now and tell them this story. They are really going to want to know this story. And they loved it so much, of course, they were just over the moon with it. They published it right away in their weekly newsletter, and I think they did some other campaign surrounding this whole thing. And let me ask you something. Do you think that their customers enjoyed reading an article that wasn't about a million different ways that you can make coffee or a million different ways that you can drink coffee, but how their customers are relating to their product, or better yet, being of service to each other through their product? Yeah, they did. Share your brand's story. And the last home to practice good story form, and in my opinion, probably the most important home, is where your product resides, your professional houses, your companies, your businesses, the places from which it all begins. Because the culture of storytelling begins at home. So I have an exercise for you. And the goal is to invite your colleagues into the culture of storytelling. So after the presentation, not right now, but after the presentation, I want you to call a meeting with whomever is involved in sharing your brand story, whether it's marketing or the creative team or the CEOs or the assistants or all of them, and it should be all of them. I want you to call a meeting with them, and I want you to tell them a story using all the ingredients that you learned here today. It can be about anything. It can be about what happened at the bar last night, but it must have 2 things. It must be personal to you and relevant to them. And in doing this, you will demonstrate how incredibly profound and effective storytelling is. You'll blow their minds. Trust me, okay? So to recap, you're going to turn your status updates into mini blog posts. You're going to tell your brand story, and you're going to demonstrate your storytelling superpower to your colleagues, okay? Everyone always asks me for a graph. It's so funny. So here's the obligatory graph for all you left brain people, and I can get this to you too. On the right, you have the story form formula, and on the left, you have the place to execute the formula, okay? So look at that for a second. That was a quick second, sorry. Okay, so here's the most important question that I'm going to ask you today. All right, why is it so incredibly important that you implement story form into your marketing plan? Well, here's how I'm going to answer that question. All right, I recently heard a marketing guru say, and this is a direct quote for him: incorporate storytelling into your marketing plan or become irrelevant. It's like, wow, irrelevant. It's not like he said it's going to suck to be you if you don't, or see, I wouldn't want to be you, but become irrelevant. You know, that one really went through me like an ice pick and, you know, gave me great pause. But then I thought about it and I realized that this is actually really good news for you, because your industry, well, our industry, business owners and entrepreneurs, is moving in the direction of connectivity, of people, of relationship, and moving away from cookie cutter marketing practices, which are not even available right now anyway. And the reason this is such good news is because everyone in this room right now has personal stories to tell. Every single one of you has the ability to tell persuasive stories. And if you use this formula and this strategy, the way that I outlined it, you will engage your audience, you will deepen relationships, and you will seal those deals. Okay? Just wanted to give you my information. If anyone wants to follow up with me and tell me their stories, I love hearing them, see how this all went out. So please email me if you have any extra questions. I would love to hear how this works out. I'm always really curious what people do with this information. I get the most unbelievable follow-ups from this webinar. This one in particular, I do one that's a little bit more technical and I go into more detail on actually how to do this in social media. But when people see this for the first time, they follow up and they're just like, oh my God, this changed everything. This changed my relationships like in ways I could have never imagined. So I always love hearing that. And so I would love to take any questions. We have a little extra time. Sorry about some of the technical stuff. So we saved some time that I couldn't open everything, but I would love to take any questions you might have. I don't know if you want to do this, if you want to write them out. I'm not sure if you want to type them to me. We want to go to chat. Copy of the deck, yes. I'm assuming you all can hear me. Yes, everyone can have a copy of the deck for sure.
All right. I see Chris Ryan, hands unmuted or up. Chris, do you have a question? You can unmute yourself.
Sure. Hey, Dawn.
Hey, Chris.
That was a brilliant presentation, and I love how you rode the tightrope technically, because you showed us a tremendous amount of maturity and elegance in the face. I mean, that's spontaneity, and that just shows that's the way life rolls, right? So you just roll with it. But, you know, some people, and you and I are in similar professions because we're both storytellers, but I try to tell other brand stories. Would you say that storytelling is a part of marketing strategy? Sometimes people get caught up in strategic thinking, but, you know, I'm hearing that this is a strategy for communication. How a brand connects with an audience is a strategic form of marketing. Would you agree with that?
Oh yeah, I definitely, this falls under the umbrella of marketing for sure. And as I said so many times throughout, you know, traditional marketing isn't really that effective anymore. People aren't really responding to a lot of those old styles of engagement anyway. You know, the statistics are showing that people, you got to get their attention quick and fast today, and things like statistics and data and all that doesn't really do it. There's a time and a place to get to all of that. I'm not saying never talk about that, but to engage people and get their attention, this is a really effective marketing tool. Hopefully that answered your question, Chris.
It's well done.
Thank you, sir. I'm not sure if you guys
Any
are
other questions?
God, you guys are quiet. Maybe I was just that thorough. I can't believe that song didn't come up.
Hello?
Terrible. I was really looking forward to you guys hearing that Leo Sayer song. Darn. You know the one I'm talking about. You make me feel like dancing.
Well, I'll stick my nose into it. I've started doing podcasts with John Beethan, and I wrote a book many years ago called Parables for Entrepreneurs, and it's 30 stories some from the Bible and some others that relate to running a business, especially if you're looking for outside capital. But I've gotten hooked on podcasts, so I get to tell stories every other week. We do 20 or 30 minutes, and it comes from my history and got a lot of my conundrums and
Yeah.
funny sayings and so forth. So you're welcome to go to johnsanders.com and pull them down. And the book you can read or you can actually listen to it. So I'm into the story. Of course, I've been telling stories for 60 years, so it's nothing new for me. But I enjoyed your talk.
Thanks, John.
Say, Don, I love the talk too. And I may be speaking only for myself, maybe for others, but the fact that there aren't a lot of questions is a testimony to how darn well your presentation was. I mean,
I'm good. I hope that's it.
yeah. So, and my only question is the mechanics of getting the slide deck, because I want to.
Yeah, I'll get it to you. Well, I gave you my email, and if you just want to reach out to me.
Yep.
I don't want to try to do anything technical right now because clearly like
Exactly.
God is not on my side right now, which,
Yep.
I'll have a talk with him later. But you have my email. So I will just directly, there's not that many people here. So I can email it 49 times or whatever,
Blind carbon copy.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, Scott, you have a question?
Yeah, first off, great presentation. Good job, Dawn.
Thank you.
That's what I expected from you. Excellent storyteller. So that's my question. So you've given us sort of a lot of ideas and sort of an approach, almost a formula to practice with, but how did you become such a good storyteller, and what would you recommend we do to get better at storytelling?
So it's a great question. It really is. And, I think living life on life's terms and living in reality and dealing with the fundamental human unease has made me a good storyteller. And I have used my own personal stories to change my life and to connect with other people. And when I saw that that was how people were relating to me, I started to use it in my business acumen, and it worked for me there too. And I suddenly realized that vulnerability piece and that authenticity piece is what people were responding to, both personally and professionally. They weren't responding to, like I've said, all the other marketing stuff that I was doing. They were responding to my truth. And like when I sat down with that marketing guy and I told him that story, I mean, he couldn't eat it up enough. He wanted to hire me right then and there. And he practically did. And I have so many other stories like that. I gave my first TED Talk a couple of years ago, and I kind of blew it. I kind of, something went wrong there, and I was on a stage and someone running the PowerPoint screwed it up and it didn't match what I was saying. And I was really mortified by that. And my very first keynote talk on stage after that was a year later. And I got that job because I told the curator that story. Now, that was a big risk because my job as a professional speaker, I don't want to highlight my mistakes, but there was an opening in our conversation. And I shared, and by the way, I was stacked. This is my first keynote at the MGM on a stage, and I was stacked up against 20 people who have been doing this for years and were much more qualified. And there was an opening in the conversation with the curator, and I told her the story of my TED Talk and what happened. She hired me right then and there, right that second, to speak at that event, because people want humans. They want the human condition. They want a message. They want the audience to relate. And so it just shows up every single time. It never fails. Now, I'm not saying air your dirty laundry. You got to be appropriate. And, I don't have to tell you what that is. You have to be appropriate. But this is a time to take some risks, to take some emotional risks in your professional lives. And I cannot say this enough. I want to scream this from the rooftops.
But just a real quick follow-up. So how do you suggest I mean, you're comfortable telling personal stories now, obviously. For a lot of us, that's kind of a hard thing to, get, particularly in front of an audience of people talking about our own personal lives.
Yeah, I know. There's a lot of resistance to this, especially from some of the older generations and people who have really relied on traditional marketing techniques for most of their career. This is shocking to some people. But like I said, I started out doing this with speech writing. So I sort of eased into this, working with kind of some very traditional type of CEOs and starting to slowly change them into this style of thinking. So the way to do that is to be prepared, know who your audience is, and know what your stories are that are going to be relatable to them, and think that process through. You guys are business owners. You know what appropriate content is. No one needs to tell you that. If you have a gut feeling about things, if you're standing on a stage, if you should share this or not. If it's slightly uncomfortable, that's good. But you don't want to be inappropriate. And I think we all know that place where we've crossed that line. And sometimes I cross it and I'm inappropriate, but I'm a little irreverent anyway, and people know that about me, and I'm comfortable doing that. But for the most part, I would suggest being slightly uncomfortable is where this is at, and it will take time to get used to it. Answer? Was that an answer?
Perfect. Janny, go ahead.
Yep. So I have a question that kind of, I think, follows that well. Also, fantastic job, Don. That was really well presented and helpful, useful. I was thinking about there's the stories that come to you spontaneously in the moment that this fits this situation. But what about, planning for stories that you might use, and just if you have any techniques or words of wisdom you could share with us about how to do that.
Planning?
Yeah. Thinking about, planning. Finding the stories that are right for different situations.
So that is, I go into that in into my more, detailed other webinars where I go into more detail on that. It's a hard thing to answer kind of right here. And that is a personal question, and it's going to be different for everyone. But as I just said in the last answer, you got to think about the audience and why are they there? Why are you there? Why is this important? Why should anyone care about this? And the stories from your life that will answer those questions are the stories that you should choose. This is a strategic plan. This is not shooting from the hip. This is marketing. This takes methodical thinking and planning for sure. But you have to be prepared. You have to be thinking the stories through beforehand. That situation with that curator wasn't one of those times where I did that. I had another story holstered for that, and something happened in the conversation, and I just kind of said, what the heck? But I'm comfortable in my skin today, and I don't really care what people think, and so I'm sort of good with it. So I did that. But that takes time. That certainly takes time. Hopefully that answered your question.
Yep. Thank you.
I don't know. I'm seeing some of the comments. I'm not sure. Anyone else? A lot of good questions.
All right, I'm going to turn it over to Brett. And Don, thank you so much. It was an awesome presentation.
Thank you, Kathy.
It looked like Carolyn had a question.
I did. So Don, how do you, other than carrying a book, when you're talking to people and you're talking to clients and you're kind of paying attention to what's going on around you, what triggers you to remember stories, and how do you know, there's a great story that I need to remember, or there's a story I could use, or what clicks to help you realize that is a good story?
I think a lot of things, again, as I was just saying to Janie, I think these things through beforehand. I do some planning and some thinking beforehand, and I kind of have a list of what my personal stories that I think will apply to this audience. And then I let the conversation take its natural course and lead me to, I'm usually triggered by something. It's probably like an emotional trigger, not in a bad way, in a good way. I'm triggered by something, and I kind of judge the situation and the energy in the room, and that leads me to that, to that answer. It requires being in some decent spiritual shape, honestly.
But you must have also collected in your head stories that you can pull out.
Yes.
And what made you remember that story? So, now I can use it in front of this audience. Is it an astute paying attention to what's going on when you talk to people? What is it that helps you to gather those stories in your head?
Well, it's the thing that I'm always thinking about. This is what I'm talking about all the time now, stories and my stories. So I'm aware of all my stories I'm not thinking about myself all the time. I don't mean that. I'm not self-centered. I'm thinking of others a lot, but I'm constantly thinking about this. This is my modus of operandi. This is how I'm connecting, relating to the world, connecting to people. So I'm constantly thinking about stories and storytelling. My head is constantly swarming with all this information because this is the world that I'm in now. This is how I conduct my business. This is my professional life. So I'm totally immersed in the concept of storytelling and in my stories. Thanks for the question, Carolyn. Anyone else? Thank you guys. So many great questions. Thank you. Hey, Brett.
Hey guys. I wanted to just jump in here. I really disappointed that I had a conflicting meeting and wasn't able to hear all of Dawn's presentation, but I did get to come in for the question and answer. And I can just tell even from the questions and the way you answered, what a great presentation this is. And I will be going back and watching the video when we post it on our website. I loved your piece about authenticity. I think that is so true. People want to deal with real people, and that instills confidence when you're asking for the order. If you're being authentic in all that you're doing, your chances of conducting business with somebody else go up exponentially. So I think that was brilliant, and I look forward to hearing the entire presentation online, which is a great point I want to share with all of you. We've been putting out some phenomenal content over the last several months since COVID hit, and we've got it all on our website. If you go to carlsbad.org and at the very top navigation, you'll see webinars, and there's webinars that we've done. This will be there, if not today, on Monday. And all the ones that we've been doing over the months are just listed there, and they're in chronological order. So there's some great content there. I encourage you to go and check out our website and all this stuff. Thank you today to our Soapbox presenters. And for those of you that don't know me, I'm Brett Schanzenbach. I'm the president and CEO of the Carlsbad Chamber. Thanks for joining us today. But thank you to our Soapbox presenters today, the Believe in Signs, Ryan Video, and My Point Credit Union. We appreciate you all. And I think Nancy Joe's on the call today. Nancy Joe, do you want to tell us about your chamber plates coming up?
Yes, I do. It's October 8th. It's from 8 to 9. Please email me at nancythehealthcoach@gmail.com if you'd like to attend. So October 8th, 8 a.m. to 9 a.m., which is next Thursday, I think. I would love it if you would join me, please. Next Thursday.
And Nancy, is that going to be in person? Is that going to be virtual?
Virtual.
Virtual. Okay.
Virtual.
So via Zoom. All right. And give your email address one more time.
You want me to type it? nancythehealthcoach@gmail.com, and I'll also type it.
Perfect. Thank you. So that's Chamber Plates on October 8th. And I want to tell you just about 2 events coming up that are really important. Also on October 8th, but after Chamber Plates, we are rolling out 4 different affinity programs that we have put together here for our members at the Carlsbad Chamber of Commerce. And the programs, each program's distinct and a little different. And so on that day, on October 8th, what we're doing is we're doing half-hour informational sessions back to back to back to back with like a 15-minute buffer in between. So you're going to be able to tap in via Zoom. If you want to hear information about just one of them, you can just come in when that time for that program is. Or if you're interested in 2 or 3, you can come and go. It'll be the same Zoom link for all 4 of them. And so here's what the programs are. Starting at 10 a.m., we will have we'll have the rollout of a new telehealth benefit that we have for Carlsbad Chamber members. Telehealth. This is a great program. I think if you have a couple of employees or even just for yourself, you should check this out. I think you'll be very interested in this. So much of what we go to the doctor for can be done via telehealth now, and this program is really impressive. So that's at 10 a.m. Then at 10:45, I gotta get this straight. At 10:45, we have a brand new thing for companies that are starting to reopen and bring employees back into the office. One of the things you got to be really careful of, right, is liability that you could expose yourself to due to COVID. So how do you protect yourself in terms of a prevention and a tracking mechanism? And, you know, there was just a law signed by the governor yesterday about what you have to do if somebody in your place of business comes down with COVID, what your requirements are to notify other staff and everything. So this company called Passpoint has come up with a system that will help you do all of this, stay compliant, and be effective in protecting yourself from a liability standpoint. So, and if you're a company, if you're a small company, like 5 employees or less, they're actually offering their service for free. And if you're bigger than that, it's extremely reasonable. So I encourage you to check out that program. That'll be on that webinar from, let me get my math straight, at 10:45. So 10:45 will be Passpoint and about doing all that stuff for
so whatever. Fine.
For COVID. And at let's see, 10:45. At 11:30, we will have King Benefits. They have several benefit programs, including, and this is one you want to pay attention to this, folks, because every company in the state of California is required by this time of 2021 to have provided sexual harassment prevention training, required by law. And if you haven't done it yet, King Benefits is going to offer that free to Carlsbad Chamber members. Plus, they have several other great benefits that are tangential to what you already offer in your healthcare stuff. So they're going to be presenting at, what time is it? 11:30. And then the last one at 12:15 will be our 401k aggregate program. We had just rolled this out in the month of March before COVID hit. And so it got kind of pushed to the side. But this is a great program. Again, another legal thing that's coming up. By June of 2022, every company in the state of California has to offer a retirement program to their employees, or you have to enroll in the state program. And I can just tell you, you don't want to be in the state program. No offense, but you know, they're good at making laws and they're good at throwing the hammer down on things, but are they going to be good at managing investments for your company's 401k? I'm not even going to answer that. So if you want to get more information about that, sorry, 5 or more employees for June 22nd deadline. Thank you, John. So 12:15 on October 8th, we're going to be talking about that rollout. That's a great program. It's going to make your life easier as a company. It's going to reduce costs and it's going to reduce your liability. So those are the 4 programs we're rolling out on October 8th. Like I said, you can tap into all 4 of those sessions, or you could just pick 1 or 2 or whatever. But it starts at 10 a.m. and then the next one will be at 10:45, which is the first one at 10 a.m. is the telehealth. 10:45 is the COVID prevention tracking. 11:30 is the health benefits and sexual harassment training program. And 12:15 is the 401k aggregate program. So it's all on our website. You just register for Zoom. It's one Zoom link for the whole thing. And I hope you join us and learn about some of these great programs. And the last thing I'll mention, on October 21st, our virtual happy hour this month, we're doing it in conjunction with our friends at the Encinitas Chamber of Commerce. It's going to be a speed networking via Zoom, but with our friends in Encinitas, so we can get some interactions and connections to other folks that we might not typically network with. So I encourage you to participate in that. It's just 1 hour from 5 to 6 p.m. We have this down to a science. Kathy's really good at doing this whole thing in the background. She's like our little Zoom ninja back there that you don't really see, but she's just making all the connections happen. She's amazing. So that's some things coming up at the Carlsbad Chamber. I appreciate you guys participating. Appreciate Dawn and her presentation. I can't wait to watch the full thing after hearing the great questions. And I'm going to be quiet now and turn it back over to Kathy.
Well, thank you for everybody for coming today. It was great. Dawn, thank you so much. What a wonderful presentation.
Thank you, Kathy.
All right. Have a great morning, everyone. Thanks for coming.
Have a good weekend.
Bye.
Thank you.
Stay safe.
Thank you.